Hello, welcome to this presentation. We are going to show you how Production Studio works and how it changes completely your workflow. Now it works in the cloud. It is so much easier to use. I am using it all the time. Let me just understand the environment that I'm in. I'm on this camera here, and this is part of the screen recorder. I'm using Camtasia to screen record my screen because I want to show you the whole experience. So we're screen recording a Zoom webinar. The other camera up here is the one that's within my webinar. I've joined the event as backstage. So we are off air, the webinar's not started yet, and I am in backstage, which means I can't be seen, I can't be heard, but I can check the chat, I can check polls, I can talk to my colleagues. So of course the first thing I need to do if I'm going to run this is I need to get on the stage, because if I'm not on the stage I can't do anything. So we'll click on the Enter Webinar button and it will prompt us because these are big things we're doing, so it double checks you want to do this, and it says we're in the webinar, and it says the webinar starts at 4 o'clock my local time. I am now on stage, but what I want to do now is launch Production Studio. So if I go to the View button, and I've already defined Production Studio, and I will do that later to show you that, but we're going to show you the context of how it works once I'm in. So here is Production Studio. I've launched it in another window. I can drag it down and show you. Here it is. So here's Production Studio. So sources, me, I'm the only source on the screen, I'm the only person here. I'm just going to run this on one PC to keep this easier. I could bring in some other bots I suppose to help, but I want to keep this simple because it's quicker and easier to follow. And also I want to show you why, even though I'm on my own, I'm using Production Studio. So in this Production Studio format we have here, and I can make this a bit bigger, you can see that I have a preview and a off-air button. So that's because we haven't started yet. And the preview allows me to see what's going to happen next. And you can see down here are what we call scenes. So these are the layouts that I can click through that I have defined already into which I can put my production. And the one I will put my production in to start with before we go live, so I've got it running, is this first one. So I need to add a speaker. I could have defined a speaker earlier when I was setting it up, but I didn't, so I need to define a speaker, and that's going to be myself. And if I had another speaker who wanted to be on the call with me, I could add them here, and they would then be underneath in these positions here. But I also want to check my other scenes and set them up for this particular event. So this one is a share screen scene. So in this one I'm going to have me showing a screen, and it says the content will be shared here, and I'll put myself down the bottom as a speaker. That's that scene defined. This scene is the same thing, so I will make myself the presenter of the screen, and I'll make myself the top speaker of the screen. Now, why am I using these and why am I only defining one speaker? Well, I'm only defining one speaker because there's only one speaker here. But I've also defined these to allow multiple speakers because Production Studio is responsive. And what I mean by that is if you don't have a person there, it will respond and change the layout of the screens to make use of the screen and to make the person that's not there in the scene not part of the production. So it will adapt the screen to suit the layouts. And that's why I always keep extra people there so I know where they would be and I could attach them later on. Now I don't want to start the whole event to a blank world, so I can send live, and that's going to warn me. And now I am live. But you see in live I'm taking up the full screen as compared to in the scene, if I click on the scene, where you can see I'm at the top. Because as I said, it's responsive. So because I'm the only person on the screen, it's made me the full screen. If I go to the share, and I make that live, you can see no difference. Why can you see no difference? Because again, I'm the only person on the screen, so it makes me the full screen of the person. Because there is nothing else to share at the moment. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share the slideshow, but I'm not going to share the complete slideshow, because if I share the complete slideshow, I'm then going to have difficulty showing you what I'm doing. So I'm just going to share the outline of the slideshow, which some people do on purpose, which is quite annoying. And now you can see that I have the layout here. Here's this little box here is my Zoom collection of people, so I'm going to take that off the screen so you don't have it in your way. And then you can see that I'm in the presenter version. If I go to this scene, which is that's my presenters version. This is my presenting version, where I have a slideshow at the top. So I can send that to live, and that is now on the top of the screen. And I could have a scene where maybe it's just a screen share, and then I could just screen share the entire screen and disappear as well myself. Now I don't tend to do that, because I tend to add the graphics that I want to display in my window of my camera. So using production software behind, I will make that happen. But if you're using titles and slides inside your PowerPoint slides, inside your screen share, you may want to make that a full screen, so you can make use of that. So here we are so far, and we haven't invited anybody to the event. But one interesting thing has happened. If I drag down the list of participants, you see there's actually now 2 participants to the meeting. The second participant is called Production Studio. So what Zoom has done, as it's now in the cloud with this product, is that everything that I am organising with this Production Studio is happening in the cloud, and then it's being delivered down to me and everybody else as a person called Production Studio. So in a way, we are spotlighting Production Studio and then mixing all the content into their feed. And that's how it's working. And that's why we had to go from speaker view or gallery view to Production Studio view. And that's when this window here, which allows me to play around with the design, as pops up. In fact, this screen underneath is just the title screen, isn't it, for the event, so we can just drag that away. We don't need that anymore. We have this production screen, which is running. And then we have our, what I call our control tab, which I'll drag down so it's on the screen so you can see it. And that is basically all I need to do my production. I have my slideshow, which you can see up here, which I can walk through. I know I'm doing it in the wrong way, but that's again just to save the real estate and make it easier for you to see what I am up to. Because usually, if I was doing this for real, I would have this screen that you can see would be the actual slides, and then my Production Studio controls would be up on my second screen out of the way. But because I'm doing this for you to see it, I swap them around. I hope that makes sense. So I'm now ready to start my production. So I can hit broadcast here. That's probably the easiest way of going. So if I hit broadcast, it says, do you want to start the webinar? And I'll say start the webinar. So it's now starting the webinar. The audience will come in as attendees into this webinar, and I can then welcome them all. Thank you very much for coming. Great to see you here. And I now, they're not seeing this, they are now seeing what I have on air. So they're now seeing my slideshow, and I can now go through my slides and show them about Zoom has a time machine, and we could go through the slides and we could run that through there. And then if I wanted to then speak to them on my own, I may click that as my next scene, and I could do send live. and I now come full screen and I can now talk to them. And then if I want to go back to presentation, I just click Send Live and we've been swapped back. And then maybe I want to do the Send Live in the other layout for some reason, and I can do Send Live, and we're this way round, and I can then talk about the presentation. I've got to remember it's mirrored. The presentation is over there, so this presentation is doing the content. This has been around for quite a while, Production Studio. But now it's in the cloud. I am now running it on the same PC that I was running everything else in. Whereas before I had to have it on a separate PC, because running Production Studio in the cloud means that all that data that needs to be downloaded to run Production Studio to get all the video feeds that are on this screen would have to come to my machine. And then the answer, whatever I'm going to put on air, would have to go back up to the internet. And that was power hungry. It was complicated. Caused a problem with delays in audio signals going down and going back up. But now it's in the cloud, it just, everybody gets it into the cloud, and then it comes from the cloud back out to everybody else. So I'm not finding any sync issues with videos or audios or things like that. I'm not having delays because I'm just processing the display on my computer rather than processing the whole thing. The rest of it's all being done in the cloud for me. It's not using so much power. I've been able to run it on much less powerful machines. In fact, after I've done this presentation, I'm actually going to try and do a setup on a Mac Mini and see if I can get a Mac Mini to run this presentation. It's made things easier. What don't I like about the system? Well, actually, there's not much I don't like. You can't change and define new scenes when you're already live in an event. And I would have said before I tried to use this that that was a disadvantage. But actually, after using it in practical circumstances, I can tell you it's not a disadvantage. Because the whole idea of this is to have a nice simple interface to make some simple scene changes. And if you're going to do things ad hoc on the fly, then I would probably suggest that you used another piece of software. And I like this one. I'd like it to stay simple. I'd like it to stay easy and manageable. I wouldn't want this product to get more complicated. I like it to be simple, because if it's simple, it's easy to use. And I may not be the target for this particular product. This is really great for people who are not technically minded, might not have a production background at all, but have been asked to manage an event for their boss, for their company. And this tool makes it really easy to do that. Exceptionally easy to do that. And there's a few extra things which might not come to mind straight away. The first one is Production Studio, as I said, doesn't allow you to make changes to the scene on the fly. So the bad news about that is you need to set them up in advance. The good news for that is you've got to send them up in advance. That is an advantage because it forces you to set them up in advance. But it also means that somebody else could set them up in advance for you. Somebody else could plan it for you. And then you, as the operator, just run the scenes as they are given to you. That, to me, is an advantage. The second advantage about having it easy and in the cloud is if I got cut because my broadband went down or my PC crashed, somebody else could pick this up. Because the system wouldn't go down, it would just freeze in that scene. The people would still keep on talking, the audio and the video would carry on working. But somebody else could then log into Production Studio, take over Production Studio and take over the control and then control the scenes going in and out. The production itself would continue running without hesitation. That is really powerful. And it also means it's secure because you're no longer relying on one person to be the final producer. If they have a problem, another person, even at another location, can take over and make the production continue. It doesn't stop. Lots of fancy stuff happening. Because in Production Studio, you've still got the ability to add as many cameras as you like and sort them out and then have them as people. You've got the ability to take shared screens and make use of those. You've got the ability to take shared screens from multiple people and make them work together. You're only, in most cases, going to have one shared screen on the at a time, but I don't suppose you have to. It depends on the presets that Zoom give us. It's a nice, easy to use system. It's a powerful system. I love it, but you've probably gathered that from the way I've described it. So that is my short, sharp description of Production Studio. Now we'll go back in time and have a look at how I create them. Here we are with a time jump to look at the workflow behind building up our Production Studio production. I'm in the Zoom.us website. I've logged in. I found the event that I want to edit, Production Studio, and all I need to do is find the branding. And so if I click on the branding button, you can see at the top I have Production Studio. So if I click Edit Production Studio, this is the environment in which I can create all my scenes that I want to make use of in my production. And it's very, very simple. It's limited, but that's on purpose because we want to keep it simple. The layout is very simple. That on the left hand side I have my scenes that I've already created. I can create 50, but remember, you effectively create more than 50, because if you create a scene which doesn't have all the boxes populated when it goes live, that scene is responsive and downgrades to whatever content is being filled in the boxes and only delivers that. So you don't have to do a 1 guest, 2 guest, 3 guest, 4 guest, 5 guest, 6 guest, etc. layouts as separate scenes. You can just do one layout for, say, 4 guests, and then the system will automatically respond to the number of guests that you assigned into a scene. And the assigning into scenes can be done before the event even starts. So we have the production here. These are the 4 scenes that you would have seen in the online recording. See, I'm not sure if one recording is before or after the other now, so I'm getting confused, but I think you've just seen that already. And you can see in the top one, I had to assign all the people. Well, if I know who's coming to my event, I can actually assign them live. So I've clicked on that scene, and now if I scroll down on the right, I've got at the top of the right hand side, I've got my title, so I know what it is, which helps me remember what everything's about. I have the layout that's been selected, but if I scroll down, I can actually get to the scene speaker list. And if I had lots of people, and I've got only 2 people assigned to this particular webinar as hosts and co-hosts at the moment, so I've only got a choice of 2, but I can actually select those people as the first and second speaker. So they are now assigned to those boxes. I can reassign other people when I go live, but I can assign those people to those 2 boxes. Now I know, because I'm working this backwards, that the second person is never going to come to the webinar. They're never going to turn their camera on. So in this layout, if they did, I would be in the middle and they would be below me. If they don't turn up, then I know that my video would just take up the whole screen. And I click on another button and the system reminds me I haven't saved it, so I will save that. And it now takes me to the second scene. And the second scene, I have at the top a screen share box. So again, if I choose who the speaker is going to be to share the screen, then automatically that will be prepared for me. And I can do now is it now wants to know which presenters are. Sorry, I've done it the wrong way around. That is assigning the speaker. So I want to assign this one speaker there and one speaker there. They're my 2 speakers. If I'm the only speaker on the screen, it will take up the full screen again. But what happens when I screen share? Well, I need to choose the presenter who's going to do the screen share. So there we are. When that presenter does a screen share, the screen share area will become active and the people doing the presenting underneath will disappear underneath. And of course, if there's nobody displaying below, the screen share will take up the whole screen. That's how you do it. The only mind-boggling thing after that is just looking at all the different variations that we have on this right-hand side. Take, for instance, this one. This is a cool one because it's all the speakers. In fact, let's add a scene. I don't want to add it where it is now, so I'll discard that. I'm going to add a scene at the bottom, and I'm going to choose that one with 4 speakers and a shared screen. No, that was not the one I was going to show, was it? It was going to be... Wasn't there one with more? Maybe that was the one I was going to show. Well, it is now. So again, I can choose the content shared by presenter. I can scroll down to the right hand side. I can say, well, that's me. And then if I have more presenters, I could then assign them to different boxes. I can put me at the top and the bottom and then add other 2 speakers when they come later, and they can add in the middle. If they're not there, it will crunch up and keep the thing organized for me. If you feel that you want to make a different change of layouts, one of the things you can do is you can change the aspect ratio. So of these speakers on the right, maybe I want to do sort of portrait mode and crop off the 2 sides of their screen. So I could do it maybe as a 3x4. And the rest of it will responsively move around here as well. So I can do that as well. And of course the last thing I may want to do is I may want to add a wallpaper. In other words, what's going to be seen behind all these windows when there's spaces. And the one I had on the example I showed to you was this very simple one, where I've got a simple background, but I have a logo in the bottom left corner, and I can then strategically choose my screen layouts so that that logo area is the bit that's free, more often than not. Can you shuffle these around? Can you move these around? We're trying to keep this simple. This is simple, it's easy to do, and therefore you can see how they all move around when I choose each scene, and I can choose each one to go live. And because it's being prepared in advance, if you've got names of all the speakers, somebody can pre-populate all of this for you before you go live in the event, which again makes it easier to use. I love it. Honestly, I loved it before, but I'm usually running webinars on my own. I run them at such random times. It's impossible to get somebody to support me all those time slots. And that was a problem, because then I had to run Production Studio on another machine, because all this software running on one machine was just impossible to control, and also made a very power hungry machine. That put me off using this product, because if I have to have 2 or 3 machines running to do my presentations and I have to click on them all, this is starting to get a bit more complicated, a bit more involved, a bit harder to do. But now Production Studio is in the cloud. It's just a window, and I've got this dual screen PC. Okay, it's a power PC, but I was running Production Studio, I was running PowerPoint slides, I think I had Outlook running as well. I was running a Production Studio software called vMix at the same time as well, because I was using that for lower thirds graphics and things like that. It's only a 40 series card. Okay, it's a top of the range 40 series card, 4090, but that's not state of the art by any means. The processor is certainly not state of the art by any means either. That's what as old as the 4090 is, or is it 4080? That doesn't matter, does it? Technicalities. It's a medium range machine now by today's standards, as far as I'm concerned. Less than 20% processing power is being used. So No problem at all. No ramping up of the fans and lots of noise because it's trying to, it's stress trying to process this. No. Breezes along. One PC, 2 screens is enough for me to see everything. Easy to use. I would think by now you're probably fed up and you're probably going to leave this webinar and just go off and use it. But of course, that's probably the one question you're waiting for, isn't it? John, where can I use this? Well, the answer is really actually quite simple. If you have a Webinar Plus or events license, it's part of the license. You get access to Production Studio. Now, technically speaking, what I've just been showing you is a Webinar Plus event because it has a lobby and you go into it. But I use Production Studio on normal webinar versions where it's just a webinar. There's no lobby. It just goes straight into the webinar. But because I have I have a events license with Webinar. Now in this case, it's actually, I have a full events license on this one. I have another account on there with the other machine where I do work for somebody else, where I only have a Webinar Plus license. But on both of them, I have access to running my Production Studio. And for some of my events, as I said, I'll have the hub, and they will go to the lobby, and they will go into the webinar. But I have other webinars that are just straight webinars. Because I have the license, I get Production Studio on top, and on those I can run a webinar where you just get a webinar link. You go straight into the webinar. If you're a speaker, you go straight into the backstage of the webinar. Everybody's pulled together a webinar, has their event in the webinar, run it on Production Studio, get the beautiful layouts, and then it all looks fantastic. And what of course I miss, because I never do it, is I could turn off Production Studio halfway through a production. If I wanted to go back to just the gallery view to have all the panelists having a chat, or I just want to go back to speaker view, I could flip everybody off Production Studio, I suppose. Although I can't see any point. And I still can't see any point today. And this is the third time I've done this presentation. So maybe there's a place for not having Production Studio running, but I can't think of it. Once you have it, it's just a nicer playground to be in. And it just gives you a more controlled, a more well laid out, a more presentable layout to everybody. You know where everybody is because they are all in the system. And the final thing I have to tell you, bonus feature in a way, is when I do a lot of my presentations, I can find that because of the way I've played around with it, what goes to the recording, what goes to YouTube Live, isn't what was happening in the room. Well, there's a special version of Production Studio recording. So there's a recording version that's going to give me the recorded version of this content in Production Studio as Production Studio saw it. So you know what you see is what you get, is what you record. And that, I understand, will go out through the links to Zoom into YouTube. So if you run an event like some of the events I run where you have a live audience on YouTube, or you want to play it to a YouTube audience or a Facebook audience, because Production Studio is running, it is basically it's doing a local recording of what Production Studio is and sending that out to everybody. And that is the icing on the cake. And that is the power of Production Studio. I think you'll like it as much as I do. For today, for this video, thank you very much for your time.